That's fucking one of them days. One of them days. One of them days where you didn't get a break. Go on, Jan. Go on, get a drink. Bob.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Roker Report podcast in association with the Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen. It's Gav and you join us after Sunderland's 2-2 draw with Plymouth Argyle at the Stadium of Light. The least expected result or not? Let's see, we'll come on to it. I think a lot of people, maybe me included, were expecting this, but certainly the majority of people weren't, and Sunderland managed to only get a point from a game that they definitely should have won. Joining me to chat all about it is Chris, who's missed the last couple, and it's your fault. I'm blaming you. You all right, mate?
I know, how did that happen? I know you've got to talk about bloody phantom goals and, 2 penalty misses and all this, and then I get to talk about bloody Plymouth at home and getting a point off them. But I will, again, if anyone read the preview, again, you might be able to point the finger at us, because I was kind of saying in that, I was asking the question, was it just a formality and we were going to get 3 points? And when I was kind of looking at them and looking at their form and everything, before the game, everyone was just thinking, well, there's only going to be one outcome. But I think, as we'll get into it, unfortunately, I think the players thought that as well.
Honestly, I wasn't shocked by this, because I just looked at it and went, they've just been battered off Burnley. They can't score a goal away from home. They can't even get a point away from home. And I was just looking and thinking, if there's one team that can help turn that form around, it's us. And the fact that they've beaten us this season, I was just thinking, this has got banana skin written all over it, this one. I mean, I wasn't shocked in the end. Obviously, the way the game transpired, it was a bit irritating, and we're going to come on to all the ins and outs and that. But yeah, I genuinely, before the game, I think I must have had 5 or 6 different conversations with people where I was like talking about their form and then going, you know what's going to happen, don't you? It had that feel about it. I don't know what it is about us sometimes, because you would look at that on paper, as you kind of alluded to there, you would look at that on paper, and game isn't played on paper, of course, but you would look at their form, you would look at our form, and you would just think, well, we've got to win that, surely, nailed on. Yeah. And a lot of people are expecting us to batter them, but I don't know. Sometimes I think when you've played a team who are, 1, playing really poorly, but 2, they've just been absolutely trounced by Burnley. That means that there's a total change in approach on their end. They're going to go and rip up their game plan and just come here and try and tie us up and be difficult to beat and all that. And I was like, I don't have a good feeling about this one. Yes, we came away with a point, but just the way that just kind of played out in the end, it felt awful.
There was a few comments getting passed around of people putting on socials that it was a disaster that we got beat off Plymouth, because it felt like that. People forgot that we actually got a point, because they were like, well, it just feels like we got beat. But I mean, you're talking about Plymouth. I mean, let's talk about them quickly, because look, they got battered 5-0 at home off Burnley, and then, to be honest, I mean, if you look at it from their point of view, you say, oh, well, the next game you go away to Sunderland. And it's not, actually, it was probably a good thing for them to do that, because at home to Burnley, you've got a bit of expectancy from the crowd to get forward a little bit and to come out and at least go at the opposition and to have a go. And then at Sunderland, it's like, let's kind of go for it. And what have we got to lose? We've just been thumped at home 5-0. And the manager talked afterwards. He said that they had a few days to really come up with a game plan and kind of go for it. And the players were probably in a mindset thinking, we'll sod it. Really, I mean, what if they got another thumping off us? What did it really matter? They didn't come to Sunderland expecting anything. And I mean, you've got to tip your hat to the Plymouth fans travelling for what probably everyone thought was going to be another good thumping. And they'd be, even if there was just 2 of them, fair play to them. But there was more than that. There was a good handful of them. So, they came up thinking, oh, well, we're going to get nothing. It's a day out, whatever. And yeah, they came with a mindset. And the thing is, and we've said before that, you go back to the League One days, when teams come to the Stadium of Light and set up shop and have a game plan and look to frustrate us and play on the edge of the box, sit deep and try and catch us, it's frustrating. And the longer the games go on like that, where a goal isn't scored, the more likelihood there is of the opposition nicking one. And that's exactly what happened. And then after they nicked one, it was like panic stations. The game just went so panicked, and we lost all of our shape and concentration after that point, after they kind of opened the score. And because before then you can say, well, we controlled the game completely. And we do this quite often. We control games, but when we have more possession of the football, we don't really create chances with it. We don't do enough with it. We are better when we have less possession, we have less of the ball, and we can play long diagonals and start from the final third when the opposition commits a lot of players. And that's when we're at our best. We're at our worst when we have all of the ball and we have to break sides down. And we've seen these types of games so many times. Again, I go back to the League One days where we saw a lot of them. But we're seeing them in the Championship. I mean, this season, we've had quite a few draws at home, and I was thinking off the top of my head, I mean, we've actually drawn a third of our games basically at home that we've played at home. It's not like, we draw 1 in 3 at home. And you look at, the West Brom game was frustrating. The Coventry game, that was frustrating at home. Bristol City, that was a really good example. And this happens periodically to us, where a team comes and shuts us out and we can't break them down because they sit deep, and we don't carve teams open with chance after chance after chance very often. And this was one of them where we struggled to break them down because of, A, their game plan, but B, the way we approach the game in terms of our mentality.
Well, we knew that before the game they were going to come and sit in and make it hard for us. I think, like I said before, battered by Burnley, they were going to try and go defence first. That was obvious. So our response to that was the team which we picked. And I think that was a big talking point both before, during and after the game. Because as soon as I saw, I don't know about you, but as soon as I saw the team at 2 o'clock, I was a bit like, what? Oh, I don't know about that. We changed the midfield. Salis Abdul Samed came in. I did not see that coming, which meant that Daniel moved up alongside Joe Bellingham in the midfield. Mayenda was dropped. Chris Rigg wasn't in the starting 11. So obviously, like I said, Mayenda being dropped after scoring the winner on Tuesday. And I know that this team's at its best when we're sitting deep, and if we can't do that, then that kind of negates some of the strengths of the players that are in there. So, Mayenda in particular, he causes so many problems with his pace, just sort of putting people on the back foot, and if they're sitting in deep, then it's difficult to do that. But even still, we had chances and we put balls into the box, and I'm thinking if we had another forward in there, would that have made a difference? I don't know. But the team selection for me, I'm not sure he got it right, if I'm honest, and it's not often we get to say that on here, because I think most of the time he does, but I just don't know. I think it was a little bit too defensive, and we'll come on to this as we get talking, but after we managed to get back ahead, we reverted back to being a bit more defensive, and I just think I don't think it worked.
No, you're right, but I've seen it kind of being talked about that it was the wrong time to put Samed in, but I think it was the right type of game to put him in, because get him in at home, not too much pressure. We should beat them. But I think if he was going to put him in for a full 90 minutes to get him some minutes, I think he brought the wrong people out, and he had the wrong shape to do that. Because the problem is, Dan Neil's I think he's been fantastic this season. I think he's one of the league's best midfielders. I've said that a few times. But he has now perfected that position where he controls the game from deep. That's what he's good at. That's Dan Neil's game. Even if he'd prefer to get forward a little bit, which, I wouldn't blame him. Fair enough. He wants to add things to his game. Brilliant, fair play. But that's not his game. His game is to sit, receive the ball, be that pivot in midfield, take the ball in, receive it, knock it out wide to the flank, open teams up from deep. The problem is when you put Samed in there, like Dan Neil was then asked to do something completely different to what he's been doing all season. And when you're playing teams like this who sit deep, you need the runners. And Dan Neil that's not his natural game at the minute, because he's playing all season just sitting in there and just receiving the ball in front of the back four. Now you're asking him to do something different. He couldn't do it. And that's not on Dan Neil. I'm not saying like that's Dan Neil's a poor player or anything like that. I'm just saying that's not his natural game. And when you need to break someone down and you're playing one up front against a side where you're going to have 60-70% of possession, like you need players to get beyond that striker and be close to that striker. And the natural thing would have been to play 2 up front. Now, you bring Mayenda out, fair enough. But then, give Dan Neil a rest. Put Mayenda wide, Lafay in the middle with Job, pushing on in front of Samed. So you've got 2 attacking midfielders ahead of him, and you've got Mayenda wide, who's going to double up as a striker. Dan Neil's kind of natural game this season has been defensive and to sit. So then you've got Samed sitting, and he sit because he's not used to the way we play, so he sat far too deep. And then you've got Dan Neil not really getting forward enough. So then you've got 2 of your midfield not getting forward enough and supporting the wide players and the striker. When you're then attacking and you've got that much of the football, you look forward and there's not enough options ahead of the ball. And that's what happened. We got stuck in this rut where we had complete control of the game. When the players who were good on the ball looked up, there was nothing on. There was nothing ahead of them, so they had to go sideways. And we went sideways so much in that first half. It was kind of side to side because there was nothing ahead of them. And we were getting frustrated. And actually, you saw Plymouth grow kind of in stature in the game because they were like, well, actually, this is pretty easy. They've got one up front. They're not getting all that we need to do is kind of mark these couple of players who are actually getting ahead of the ball, and everyone else is kind of receiving it too deep. We made their job too easy. To talk about tempo and intensity, which is a massive part of it when you're trying to break sides down. But when you're set up like that and players don't get ahead of the ball, you can't play with that intensity because there's nothing forward to kind of really ping the ball into and then play off. So I thought it was actually a good game for Samed to come in. I just thought we put the wrong structure around him. I thought it was just the decisions he made around that, I think, kind of miffed me off more.
Yeah, it affected the spine of the team, like you mentioned before. I think you kind of had Neil not really playing the same role, but I think it just confused things in the middle of the pack. And then Joe wasn't involved in the game anywhere near as much as he normally is. I thought we left Isidor really isolated. Yeah. When he got his goal, that might have been one of his only touches of the ball, like what I could remember through the game. He was barely on the ball, and it was all to do with that spine of the team. It just didn't work. No slight on Samed, because I think generally he did okay. Didn't like the way or anything, but it kept it simple, passed it around. He did get dispossessed for their first, but I wouldn't blame him for the goal.
Yeah.
But generally he did okay, actually. I just, and then he was the one sacrificed when we needed to try and get back in the game quickly. To be honest, I think that sub as well, it was the manager admitting he'd got it wrong, because it happened really early in the game as they were, going back to the centre circle to celebrate the goal, but he was coming off anyways then, I think. So I just think we got that wrong, and it really, really cost us that first hour or so of the game.
Well, I don't know why it wasn't changed at half time. I mean, I know you're saying it's easy to say in hindsight. I was saying it at half time. Like, you have to change the personnel. And I wasn't necessarily saying Samed needed to be brought out, because I think you talk about Lefay and Roberts on either flank. Both of them struggled purely because when they received the ball, they looked up and there was nothing on. And this was the problem. Like, you almost had two sitting midfielders, whereas normally with the two wingers, with Roberts and Lefay, or whoever's playing wide this season, Mayenda or whatever, you've got one of the two attacking midfielders, whether it's been Rig or Bellingham in most cases, get close to them. So they can play 1-2, they can knock it inside and start again, or they can get a ball into the box. Lefay and Roberts, you talk about Isidor being isolated. Those two were isolated as well, because we were almost, like, Bellingham was trying to do that attack and play almost all by himself. And Dan Neil was just thinking, he was stuck between playing his normal game and trying to make forward runs, and he wasn't really doing either. And again, it's not necessarily his fault. It's just we got stuck in this, like I said, we got stuck in this rut where the players just, because I don't know whether it was the opposition or the type of game or the psychology of the whole thing, but it seemed like we kept giving the ball to players like Roberts and Lefay and Bellingham, and just thinking, right, well, go on then, do your stuff and win the game for us, rather than, look for the second pass or make a run beyond them. We weren't doing the second thing. We were waiting for someone to do something.
That first half actually was pretty boring, wasn't it? There wasn't really a great deal happened in it. And I said this at half time to people I was watching the game with. They would have been buzzing going in at half time 0-0. It given them so much confidence. Yeah. I think you said you heard their manager after the game. He was talking about how they showed really, really good character through the game, but he also made mention of the second half against Burnley, because, on the face of it, you look at that result and you go, bloody hell, they got battered 5-0, but they were 5-0 down at half time, and he was praising the character of the players when he went into half time and said it takes a lot of guts to keep this without conceding another goal, and he felt that gave them confidence. Now, it's the same kind of principle when it goes to this game, when they're probably expecting, to concede a couple of goals in the first half, and they don't. And then they go in at half time and they're thinking, this is great, let's keep it up type of thing. So when they scored, I think I just feared the worst when they scored, because it was just a really scruffy goal to concede, like a really scruffy goal. I've watched it back, probably 10 times now, trying to pinpoint where it went wrong, and it went wrong in about 10 places, so I've seen people blaming Patterson, but, yes, he could play a better part in the whole thing, but there were a number of players there who could have done better for that goal, and I won't go through and just pinpoint it all, but you watch the goal back, it's been given as an own goal from Patterson. I think it was Ryan Hardy who got the shot away. It's an own goal because I think it wasn't going on target when it first hits Patterson. But yeah, not great, is it, the defending there? I mean, we just get kind of pulled all over the place. Mepham doesn't really know what's going on behind him. Patterson, you look at the angle that the lad shoots from. Patterson's really got, and it can't be going under him. You know, he's got to make himself big and spread it and just put it behind for a corner or grab the ball. Like, it isn't like Hardy had a lot of room really to do anything, and I'm amazed it went under Patterson, but it did. Then it crosses the line by about an inch before Luke O'Nien clears it, but the goal line technology gives the goal. Like I said, I mentioned it before. You go and like sort of 10, 15 seconds before the ball's in the back of the net, Samed is really easily dispossessed on the halfway line. That's the moment when they break away. But it was just a horrible goal to concede when it was scruffy.
It was, but I don't think we should kind of fool ourselves into thinking like it was a one-off from Plymouth, because it's like 5 minutes after the second half started, they had a ball down our left, so their winger absolutely skinned Lefay. I mean, kind of turned him inside out, and then he whipped the ball in, and I think it was Hardy with a header, and he was right in front of goal.
Yes, yeah.
And like how we missed that, I still don't know how we missed it. You know, it wasn't like it wasn't coming. It wasn't like out of the blue. They were actually creating these better chances than us. And then, like you say, it was just a bizarre goal. I mean, the whole kind of ball into the box, scooped it wide. It was like a half-hearted attempt from Serkin to kind of clear the ball, not let the cross in. And then the ball came in, and it was just kind of this nothing ball. And by clearance, then it hit off 09. I think it deflected off 09 and then went into his path. But if you look at it again, he crosses from their right, and there's Plymouth have got 4 players in the box. And if you look, we've got 5 because Samed joins them pretty late. But like it's like almost 1-on-1 at the back, and it shows how much they actually went for it when they just put a ball into the box. They've got 4 players in there, and they had a player at the back post. So if it did miss the defence, like he just needed to slot it in, which eventually happened for their second. But yeah, in terms of Patterson, I mean, did he need to be out? Did he need to do that sliding tackle thing? I mean, I think it's probably harsh to blame Patterson for the goal, but it was poor. I mean, from that angle, a goalkeeper should not be conceding, like without it kind of being cut back and someone else putting it in. He shouldn't be conceding like that. I mean, you know, it's just almost coming out to it solid and without your legs open, so you don't get megged, but just standing up to it. Well, why did he need to leave? He didn't need to leave the floor. He didn't need to. Again, it was just a horrible, horrible goal. But it was a symptom of the way we defended. It was sloppy. It was slow. We weren't first to the ball. Like when the winger had it, we weren't kind of running in, and we weren't like desperate to stop the cross. It was more like, rather than mistakes, it was just sloppiness all around.
Yeah. Does his form worry you at all? A lot of people off the back of that have kind of saying, well, I'm just getting sick of him really because he's not putting in the level of performance as you expect of a goalkeeper at a top team. Are you concerned about Patterson at all? Because I know he's not always filled you with loads of confidence, has he, with some facets of his game and some of his performances, but I know we've generally been quite supportive of him.
Yeah, well, look, I think we talked about in the summer transfer window, I think we talked on a pod about who might be going, who might be staying. And we were talking about potentially Patterson leaving. And my take on it was that Patterson's a very, very good championship keeper. And he's probably one of the best shot stoppers in the league. The rest of his game, I think, has got a big question mark on it. Like if you look at distribution, I think he's got a question mark on that. Crosses into the box, question mark on that. You know, situations like this, decision making, question mark on that. So it's that, you know, if somebody came, he's English, he's young. For me, if someone came in with a 20 million bid, 15, 20 million, I'd say, yes, please. Thank you very much. I'd take the money and kind of invest it in a new keeper that, you know, I think you could probably buy for less than 10 million.
Mm-hmm.
By saying this, I'm not saying, we should sell him, or, I just would not be devastated if he left, because I think he's a very good goalkeeper, and I'd be more than happy if he was our goalkeeper for the rest of the season. Brilliant. Fine, well, he was going to be our number one, and that's fine. Crack on with it. But like I said, if he was one of the ones to potentially leave, like I said, I think out of all of them, he'd be one of the ones where I'd be a bit, yeah, fair enough, take the money and invest it again. There's been too many times where, and this is the thing with Patterson, where he's really good that he doesn't really make mistakes. He very rarely makes big mistakes where you go, that's a clanger. He very rarely makes those sort of mistakes. It's just sometimes it happens too often to me where you see a goal and you just think, could he have not got to that? Or could he have not been quicker? Or could he have not commanded his box there? Or could he have not? There's always this question, and it's you can't put your finger on it. You couldn't say he's definitely wrong there. But there's just always something where you think, God, is that a bit soft? You know, you're always asking, are the goals a bit soft? And it's another one where should have never scored from there.
Yeah, I totally agree with your stance on that. You're right. I can't put my finger on what it is with him, but there's something there where I'm just like, oh, I think a better quality goalkeeper would have definitely won us more points this season. But he has won us points. He's kept clean sheets, and I think he won us points at Derby on Tuesday, which is why I'm in this bit of a conundrum, because I don't know whether it was just the immediate reaction to what went on in the game or whatever, but I did see people like really going mad about him, and I'm thinking, well, I was there on Tuesday night, and I actually think his performance actually won us the game in the end, because Derby had some great chances. So, like, are we just being reactionary, or is this just a culmination of like weird moments where you just can't? I think that's what it is. I think it's more so like we like him, but I think if we're being really honest, we can probably do better.
Yeah.
My suspicion is when you would maybe going off on a tangent here, but talking about selling him and stuff, I think there's probably a plan to do that, but not now, because in the summer we're going to have Matty Young back, who's an England under-20 international.
Yeah.
And the club are going to be desperate to play him.
That's the plan.
Because if he's not playing first team football soon, someone else will buy him.
Yeah.
And that's a situation where right now it's not a massive deal, because he's at Salford, he's playing, he's getting games at Salford. He knows that in the summer he's coming back as part of the first team squad at Sunderland into pre-season training. So right now, Patterson is the number one isn't a massive issue, but I think it is something we're going to have to keep an eye on, because you could be right. There hasn't been a lot of rumours about him other than sort of paper talk about Premier League teams looking at him, but there'll be people monitoring him and looking at his contract and thinking it might be a good time to test Sunderland with a bid.
Yeah.
You said 15, 20 million. I think it would take less than that to get him off us.
Yeah.
I think he's decent, but there's better goalkeepers than Patterson have went for a lot less in the Championship this season. And I know there's the English tax and all that, but there's better goalkeepers than him knocking about. And it's one to keep your eye on, because I think, like I say, start getting towards the last couple of days of the window, and a Prem team are looking for maybe a bit of a bargain to try and shore up things. I wouldn't be completely shocked, but I think really that's going to be something that happens in the summer if it happens.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like I said, it's not. I've said this on many pods for quite a long time, and again, it's not a. I want to kind of make it clear that I'm not saying Patterson's a poor goalkeeper. I think he's a very good Championship goalkeeper. I just always have question marks about too many goals that we concede, and I always think maybe there's been times, like I said, he's been slow down. Getting down to the ball or whatever, but I just think there's too many times he could have done better. But yeah, I think, and you're right about Young. I mean, that's a great shout, because he's definitely going to be our number one, or he's going to go on to better things, because he's going to be a cracking keeper. So yeah, that's definitely the plan. And again, it's with these things, when you've got a player coming through, it's all about timing, and the whole kind of Clark Mundell thing. Mundell had 6 months to kind of bed in, and we probably knew then that Clark was off. We probably had conversations behind the scenes. Clark knew he was going. We knew he was going. And it's going to be that sort of... And Young won't come back to sit on the bench for a season.
Nah, he'll want to be playing. So, yeah, we conceded that goal, and then we made changes which made a massive difference to how we played, yes, but I think it was frustrating, and we've already went over this. You said you probably would have made changes at half-time. I wouldn't have disagreed with that. Eliza Mayenda came on for Samed, and straight away you just seen the difference. I mean, it was literally within a minute, 90 seconds, we had the ball in the back of the net, down the other end. Trey Hume, to be fair, Plymouth gave him an absolute acre of space, so he had time to receive the ball, take a touch, get his head up and decide where he was going to deliver it to. But it was a cracking ball in, absolutely cracking ball in, and it was another Wilson Isidor goal, which you look at and you go, what a goal, like what a finish. He made that look really simple, and it wasn't, because he had to get across his man, first time, whip it, lovely finish, lovely goal. And that's exactly how you want to react to going behind. Like, it was disappointing, yes, but we move on, we crack on. And like I say, a hell of a goal from Isidor. And you saw the relief from him, didn't you, by the way? We've talked about that on the last few million, Martin, about just, obviously the frustration of the Burnley game, and then having the ball in the back of the net at Derby and then having to take it away from him. You just saw with that one where he was looking at it and going, you can't take this one off us. And he needed it. He did. Because he barely had a touch in the game. So Yeah, cracking goal, wasn't it?
I heard you and Martin getting all soppy about, is he all right? Is he going to be? Of course, he'd be all right. He's a good striker. As soon as he gets chances and back on the pitch.
I said he needed to feel the weight of our support. I think he got it. And it is soppy, but I think it's true. Players these days, they read everything, they see everything. He seems like the kind of lad, if you fill him full of hot air, it helps him.
Well, he's one of these strikers, though, that you know for a fact, and we've seen it in games where he's missed a chance and he's straight back in there, like he wants the ball again. He doesn't shy away. He's one of these strikers who keeps getting in those positions, and if he keeps doing that, like I said, once he gets ahead of the defender, but like you said, it needs uses the pace of the ball. But he needs to be perfect with that touch, because if you look at Hardy for the header we were talking about earlier on, he tried to kind of skim it off his head so it went right in the corner. And all right with this, it's on the deck, it's not in the air for Isidor. But with this, he had to control it, use the pace of the ball and spin it into the far corner. And that was a brilliant finish. And like I said, a minute after, but my issue is, like, by going behind, there was an element of panic. We got the ball out wide quickly to Hume. And Hume's instinct at that point, which wasn't earlier on in the game, was, right, I'm going to get the ball in the box. And we had 3 players in the box, which we'd hardly done all afternoon up to that point.
Sorry to butt in, but here's one for you then. I saw a lot of people say that they felt the players just didn't have the right attitude for this game. Maybe didn't take Plymouth as seriously as they should have. In that moment, we did. In that moment, we did, because the reality set in and we were 1-0 down.
Well, we did, but like I said, it was panic.
Mm-hmm.
We got that goal by saying, get the ball wide and get it in the box. You could almost feel the players kind of shocked into doing something. And I mean, look, I don't think. I think with games like that, sometimes it's, look, if we have loads of possession, at some point we'll have a chance and score. And like I said, and it's not so much just thinking you're going to roll teams over. It's just, I suppose sometimes it's having enough confidence to think, well, at some point we'll get a goal, and then once we get a goal, we'll get started. And then we'll get 2 and we'll get 3. And when you've got loads of confidence, that's what happens. And sometimes when it goes wrong, it's really hard to then step it up. And especially because I talked about the shape and kind of how the team changes kind of impacted how we were going forward, which was different to how we've been doing it in previous weeks. But yeah, I think that goal was completely out of panic, getting the ball wide. You could see that the changes did have an impact. But I say again, like I said earlier, after they went ahead, all across the pitch, we looked like we just kind of threw the game plan out and just went, we need to win this game because it's Plymouth. Like, we should win this game. So we didn't play like we normally can. I think there was just a whole element of panic, because thinking we have to get 3 points out of this, or it's a huge deal. And the players just, like I said, we lost our shape and we stopped playing the way we can play.
Yeah. The second goal, then, that again, we kind of kept it up because of the reasons you've just outlined there. I think we looked at it and we were like, right, shit, we need to win now. Gave us a big confidence boost getting the goal from Isidor, and then we get a set piece on the edge of the box. We've got Lefay and Robert standing over it, quite close to the clutch of players, so I wasn't really sure how we were going to deal with this one. Was Lefay going to try and whip it over the wall and low, or were we going to fizz it in towards the goalkeeper and just try and cause a bit of panic? But it was a well-worked free kick, actually. And to be fair to Patto Roberts, we've had a few like this season from him, where some of his deliveries are just causing a bit of bother in the box, and it did this time. We got lucky, though, because it skimmed up. But to be fair to Trey Hume, when it lands, his first touch absolutely kills it. It's a hell of a first touch. And then his second touch, great finish. I didn't realise, actually, how long it's been since he scored, but it's been a long time since he got a goal. Showed the instincts of a really good goal scorer. What was funny to me was, at sort of the morning of the game, I was watching a video on YouTube that the club had put out there, and Trey Hume and Patto Roberts were on some EFL YouTube channel doing skill challenges and crossbar challenges and finishing challenges, touching finishes and stuff, and crosses. And Trey Hume was Trey Hume, Patto Roberts, and then this guy off Sky. And Trey Hume was really good. Like, passed with flying colours, even took good penalties. And it was just weird, because I'd watched that on the day of the game, and then his finish was really, really good, and got the cross for the first one. So it was a good day for him from an attacking perspective, and a nice goal.
Yeah, just quickly before we get on to the second goal, though, a few minutes before was that chance that Plymouth had with the ball over the top, and Mepham and Hume were absolutely nowhere, and they went through, and brilliant first touch. Hit the post. I mean, actually, from where he took the shot from, because he thought Mepham and Hume were getting back at him, it was actually a cracking shot. and he was really unlucky. And we one ball over the top. We were absolutely nowhere in midfield, and to allow one player to run off Mepham and Hume in behind like that, I mean that was a great example of where our heads were.
Yeah.
There was no pressure at all on the lad to put the ball over the box, and then we just let a striker run in behind off one ball over the top. I mean that is just that's proper basic kind of you know not to give him that much space, and you know not to let a runner get in behind. And then we got the goal. I think it was a foul on Lefay, I think it was. And you talk about Roberts' good delivery. I think he got lucky. I think it was a really crap free kick, if I'm honest. I mean, from the position he's in, look at the position he's in. When he first took it, I couldn't believe. I thought, oh God, that's. And then by the time I got my words out, like Hume had touched it and volleyed it in. But it's a crap ball in, I think. From where he is, how dangerous he could put that into in a real dangerous area, and he puts it there. I mean, if it was a plan, then hold my hands up and say perfectly executed. But I think it was I think you got lucky that it fell to Hume and Hume volleyed it in, because I think if we flick it out and all the players have ran ahead of the ball and that goes behind everyone, there's just big groans from everyone and saying, oh God, that was crap that. But that first header fell to Hume, and by the way, what a finish. I mean, he hasn't, like you said, he hasn't scored for a while. To take it on his knee like that and to volley it in the back of the net, he made it look really easy. And you saw a replay, and it wasn't easy at all the way he did it. But yeah, great goal and really good finish. But again, I'll kind of let you come onto it, because I'll go along this theme of us panicking. We didn't manage the game, and it was still panicked even after we went ahead.
Yeah, it was, and I think the changes which we made gave the impression that we weren't comfortable, because he brought off Dennis Serkin for Ballard. We moved 09 to left back. Rigg came on for Roberts, and then sort of towards the deep end of the game, Isidor, as the only real outlet we had on the pitch, because Mayenda was doing a lot of donkey work, came off, and Leo Hjelde came on and played basically on the left wing, didn't he, for most of it? It was weird. I don't know. I think we sent the wrong message. I've heard this before, and I think it's true. I can't remember who said it, about what team or whatever, but it was along the lines of, if the other team start bringing on defenders towards the end of a game, it sends a message to you, like, we're a little bit afraid yet, and it gives them confidence, because they only had to have one chance, and that's all they got. But I just think the changes we made, like we were talking about the team selection before, and how I felt he got the team selection wrong. I felt we were in the game at that point. We were 2-1 up. Yes, we'd had that scare where they hit the post, but we'd had a spell there where we looked really potent, and rather than capitalise on that, the answer was to, after sort of 76, 77 minutes, was to make changes which didn't positively affect the game. Yeah. We just didn't look great as a result of it. I think a lot of what we saw play out right through the game, whether that was through just the way we started or the changes we made or whatever, I felt like there was a little bit of cohesion missing that's been there for quite a while. Like all those partnerships we built up on the pitch, through the spine, like we decided to sacrifice some of that for the game plan. And I just didn't get it. I think the subs didn't help us at all.
Yeah. Look, for me, there's a difference. When you're playing at home against the side that you're expected to beat, that when you make changes like that and you go ultra defensive, then you create nerves, because you're almost saying, like, we're scared. You're almost saying, you're giving the message, you're sending the message that we're scared about something happening. If you do it against the side that you're underdogs to, and you're holding on to something, whether it's a point, whether it's 3 points, you're playing a side that you're not necessarily expected to beat, but you're in a good position. If you do that, it almost backs to the wall and it puffs people's chests up and things like this. But doing it against the side again, we talk about the mentality and confidence, but you do that against a side like Plymouth, and it's completely negative in everyone's mind, and it's the same on the pitch. And the issue as well for me is not just overloading the defence, but making so many structural changes quite close to each other towards the end of a game. So what you do with 15 minutes to go, you bring Serkin off, bring Ballard on, so you push 09 across to left back, and then you have Ballard and Mepham in the middle. And then you think, right, well, we'll kind of shore it up that way. And then 10 minutes after that, you bring Isidor off and put Hjelde on, and then say to 09, right, well, you shift in as a central defender, Hjelde play left back, play five, because you saw when Hjelde came on, he did the signal, he did 5-4-1 with his hands. So He was telling everyone they were playing 5 at the back. But then you've gone from O'Nine, who's now shifted out wide, and then you've got Mepham and Ballard, who then played as a 2, then to invite O'Nine to play alongside them, which I've said before, for me, you hear so many professionals that played defence in their time who say it completely confuses things when you play as a partnership and then suddenly play as a 3. So you make that decision to then structurally change that and O'Nine shift in, and then there's just chaos. Because there's so many players who've now been told, right, well, now you shift across, and then are they sorted, or do they know that, Ballard's supposed to be the central one, or Mepham is, or Nine is, and who's marking who? Because at that point, all you've done is just chucked players into a space. You haven't kind of designated players to say, right, you've got him or you've got him, and this is how we're going to defend, and this is how we're going to bring the ball out. And the other thing you do is, because you put that mindset in, you end up not just being negative in terms of nervy when the ball's in the box, but you stop keeping the ball. So almost your kind of instinct then is to, whenever the ball drops to you, is to smash it as far as you can from the goal.
Yeah.
You look at the players we had on the pitch. We still had Dan Neil on the pitch at the end, Bellingham, Lefay, and we had Chris Rigg on at the end. These are good technical players. Get them on the ball to keep the ball. You know what I mean? Instead of panicking about let's pack the defence and pack get your good players to keep the ball. That's what they're there for. They're good. They're good technical players that can carry the ball. That can they can shield the ball, get it into their half, and keep it. You're better than them. And it was just so weird, the thinking behind it, and the way that it just seemed like panic. Right, throw Ballard on, and have O'Nine out wide. He's not going to go forward. And then, that's not good enough. Get Hilda on and stick 3 centre-halves to nod the ball away. Instead of it's almost changing the mindset by saying, you don't have to attack them. You don't have to go gung-ho, but slow the game down. Get Dan Neil on the football. Get him to keep it. Get him to pass it to another player in red and white and go from there. And, But the thing is, the mindset had happened already when we conceded the first goal. I think it just spiralled after that.
Yeah, and then we conceded the heartbreaking equaliser in the 90th minute. And I was just, as you were talking there, I was thinking about the goal, because it's actually Hjelda's man who crosses the ball, which then causes the panic which they score from. He doesn't stop the cross. Him and Lefay stood right in front of the man, and neither of them managed to stop the cross. And it's actually not a particularly good effort to even try and stop it. They just kind of stand there and hope it hits them, rather than getting right in front of the ball. It's one of the most irritating defensive mistakes that any team, any player makes, is when you allow a cross. We used to go mental about this last season, do you remember?
Yeah.
Because it used to happen all the time. Yeah, it was that moment, really, which cost us, because I talked about a catalogue of errors for the first goal. This was the same, because you could point to loads of different things. The lad who scores, the ball comes into the box, and both, I think it's Hume and Rigg, both challenge for the same header, which allows him to go around the back and score. And it's just basic. It's just really basic crap stuff. But I think the mentality before they even got to that point, in bringing on a defender in the 87th minute, which has worked in the past, don't get us wrong. It has worked in the past. I did see a stat, we've never lost a game that Leo Hjelda's come on in. Still, it didn't work here, because it sent the wrong message.
Yep.
Plymouth had nothing to lose. They're bottom of the league, can't win a game, can't even get a point, never mind a win. And with 3 minutes plus whatever was going to be added on, we were telling them, we're just going to sit in, come on. And just sent the total wrong message, and the goal was crap. It was absolutely terrible. Again, you could maybe point to Patterson in the end, because it just flies past him like he's not there. But there's a bunch of other stuff happens before it even gets to that stage where we really let ourselves down defensively.
Yeah. Look, you can go back to the first diagonal ball, the first ball that comes in, and Ballard goes up with, I can't remember who it was, one of their strikers. And then, but it just loops to O'Nine, and he's probably level with a penalty spot. And there's not a Plymouth player within 10 yards of him. And again, this is again a result of how, the nerves that you've put into the players by this point, all that's in them because of, the first half performance, and then going behind, and then bringing all the Ballard and Hjelda on and changing the to a back 5. And O'Nine's about 10 yards out from goal, and the ball just loops to him quite slowly off the first header. And if there's no nerves there, I mean, you've seen 09 in situations like this, in much bigger games like this, have 10 times more composure. You know, like the way, if you kind of, pause it exactly where the ball's looping up to 09, like he's been in lots of positions like this before where he's taken a touch and smashed it out and cleared it. Or he's took someone's, and this is the thing as well. Did anyone, or is everyone just so panicked nobody gave him a shout? Or did someone give him a shout and he's so panicked that he just thought, I just don't know what to do here? And then he just, because there seems to be no communication and he's panicked, he nods the ball to the edge of the box. I mean, it's a bizarre thing. I mean, I don't think you see 09 doing that very often. I mean, the amount of times we've seen 09 have possession in his own 6-yard box and you've thought, God, how cool was he there? And for some, and in this situation, and again, it tells you the story about how, like, where the players' minds are at this point. And then when they get the ball out wide, honestly, I mean, you've said it before, but I was actually shouting at the time, exactly the time when the ball was played in, don't let him get the ball in the box, get tight. And there's two of them. And the problem is with Lefay and Yelder, obviously, new teammates. Yelder's not played much. Lefay's second, third game or whatever it is. And neither of them, they might as well not be there. Neither of them actually close the player down. They just half-heartedly think almost, oh, well, the other lad's there, so there's two of us. He'll never get the ball in the box. It's almost this expectation that he'll not do it. Instead of doing your job properly and just going in and closing them down. Well, that's the thing with two of them. One could go in, really close them down, and you've got the other one as cover, but they just stand there, leave a massive gap between them, and he pops the ball to the back post. And like you say, it looks like there's Hume, Rigg, and I think it's someone else, Mepham or someone like that, go for the header. Like all three of them. And you look at, and the thing is with Rigg, there's no, like Rigg's got Hume and Mepham going up for the header. He doesn't need to be there in terms of going up for the header. He doesn't need to challenge. He needs to stay out of that and win the second ball. And then you look at Rigg when the ball's dropping and he's nowhere because he's almost half jumped for this ball, which he should have never have jumped for. And then, yeah, okay. I don't know. I'm trying to think about, because you watch Patterson when the ball goes up, and at first he takes about 3 steps charging out, and then he just stops. And then by that point, the ball's dropped, and then he puts it past him into the top corner. And at that point, Patterson's nowhere. Like he's in limbo. He hasn't charged out for the ball. He hasn't charged him down. He's not stayed on his line to try and save the shot. And you can tell that at first he just thinks, I'm coming out for this. And then he just completely stops and, he finds himself nowhere. So again, look, I mean, I've just gone through it there. I must have called out about 5 or 6 players easy. But again, I go back to the overall point that I think by this point, the whole team, their heads had gone. They'd gone in terms of how they normally play. That went out the window. It was like they were just winging it at that point.
Yes, and then unfortunately they blew the whistle and that was it. We drew 2-2 against a team that everybody expected us to beat. Even though I was a little bit trepidatious going into the game, I still kind of expected to win, get 2-1 up, you're thinking, here we go, we're in now, and yeah, just frustrating, mate, really frustrating, but look, it's happened, now what we can do about it now, the players would have felt more, I mean, did you hear Wilson Isidor after the game?
Yeah.
He was like, he was almost apologetic, wasn't he, because he just, his body language and everything, he was just so gutted we hadn't managed to hold on, and really, I know there's a long way to go, but we've put a little bit more pressure on ourselves. That's the only thing, really, is that with the other top 4 teams, we've got to keep pace at all times, and that's going to mean winning this next one, I think, going to Middlesbrough. But I always say, good point on the road's a point, and it's Middlesbrough and all the rest of it. I just think that this result in performance, we really could have done with a midweek game to get over it quickly, because having to wait another couple of days on top of what you normally would to play what is a big game, not a derby, but it's a big game. Shit, we've got all that crap coming up this week as well, haven't we? We'll be running through all that. Is it a derby? Isn't it a derby? Whatever. But yeah, a big game regardless, right? And we've just got to try and switch on now. I think that's it. Get over it.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, you say get over it. Look, I mean, we didn't lose for a start, but I think it shows where we are as a club, that we're absolutely devastated to draw. And I know, like, look, it's the team that's bottom and all that, but and I said this right at the beginning, we've seen this game at the Stadium of Light so many times where we've been frustrated and end up at a point where we should have won, and we've felt this so many times, and it'll happen again. And look, during a league season, you don't win all the games you're expected to win, and you don't lose all the games where you're expected to lose. And there's some in the middle. And look, you could turn around and say, well, look, what if we got beat off Burnley, but then beat Derby and Plymouth? Would you be gutted that we got beat off a promotion rival, but would be a point better off? So it's all those kind of permutations that kind of carry on through a season. And look, beaten once in 11, I think it is now. We're on a good run. We're in a good place. And, one game in this season doesn't make the next one, or one draw or one blip doesn't make the next one a must win. It doesn't make the next two a must win. We're gonna lose games. We're gonna drop points. It's typical Sunderland that we could go to Borough, wipe the floor with them, and then pick up 2 points against Watford and Luton. That's Sunderland.
Yeah,
and we've seen it before. You go through the fixtures for the rest of the season, and you go, oh, win that, draw that, lose that, and it never happens like that. I mean,
No.
There's enough of us who played Super 6 every week to know that, we're not great at predicting results, all of us would be bloody millionaires by now if it was that easy. So, that's how it's going to go for the end of the season. And, and it's going to be exactly the same for your Burnleys. I mean, look at the whole City going to Sheffield United and smashing them 3-0. You'd have never have predicted that in a month of Sundays. And, you're talking about them having a blip. They got smashed at home off a struggling side. We had a goal in injury time scored against us. And until then, we had 3 points. And the bizarre thing is, if we hadn't conceded that last minute goal, we'd all be talking about this game going, oh, yeah, well, actually, he made good changes and to shut up shop and everything was great. And actually, what makes a good side is winning games and not playing very well. And we would have been saying all this sort of thing. But yet, all it is one kick of the football changes exactly how we talk about 90 minutes. Yeah. It's a bizarre thing, and it's and it'll carry on like that for the rest of the season. But again, looking at the whole result and looking at our result, it's as long as we keep to kind of that average ticking over 2 per game, and we're looking at that, we're looking at the long term, we're going to have blips. So it doesn't make anything kind of must win. You've just got to keep in with them, keep getting the points. And then we'll see where we are kind of at the business end. Get back into how we play, because it came off the back of good performances, good results, and they'll get back on it, I reckon.
Yes, hope so, mate. Let's hope so. So we'll be back with a preview.
Ah, man, it's not a derby. Done. Preview done.
Yeah, it's not a derby. Don't want anyone bringing that up again. But we will be back to preview the derby.
Shut up, you.
We'll be back with a preview, so make sure you check that out. Cheers, Chris. Thanks, mate.
No worries.
Thanks for this extra special long chat. This has been a long one tonight.
I know.
Cheers, listeners. If you're still here at this point, having listened to us whinge, that's why it's longer, by the way. We just whinged. But all kinds. Catch you later.